Free for a girl. Not again. Haruhi froze with a wrapped fist hovering before the smooth surface of Shisui's door, halted in the instance before the knock. She shook her head, attempting to get rid of her sudden onset of double vision. Haruhi's perspective changed when she squinted, where everything twisted into a heavily ornate staircase. The carved, dark handrail had a scaly surface, while the wooden balusters were shaped like coiling snakes. The walls were covered in stained toil wallpaper of weird art, with countless drawn sceneries where the people moved around as if alive. Though what unsettled her the most were the displays of shrunken heads mounted on plaques along the staircase. Why on earth would she think this up? As if the overlapping images weren't confusing enough. Haruhi, what are you doing? Itachi asked. Are you and Shisui not ready to leave? Haruhi jolted, and next she was back in her airy, light home, staring emptily at her brother's mundane bedroom door. She peered quickly up the hallway to where a trio of Uchihas waited on the porch. She didn't have time for this. This vision overlap was probably just because Haruhi'd overdone it during chakra exercises that morning. She was a little dizzy, that's all, but she couldn't let it show. What if they changed their mind about letting her come along? I'll be right out, Haruhi promised, knocking on her brother's door and waited. Shisui had boxed her ears for barging in unannounced before. Itachi waited politely, Sasuke tapping his foot with increased impatience, while Taiko adjusted his backpack. She hadn't known Taiko would come too. They hadn't seen each other much since the park incident, but he'd been training with Sasuke and asked to come along, and Haruhi was glad to see him. The Uchiha were a large clan, though amongst members around her own age, all were boys. It meant Haruhi was usually dragged into games of dinosaurs hunting ninjas, or digging holes for treasure chests that ended in mud-throwing wars. Those games were a blast. Her cousins Sasuke and Taiko were her best friends. But, for the sake of fairness, sometimes the boys had to play her games too. The park incident had been one of those times. Haruhi wanted to play family that afternoon with Sasuke and Taiko. Even though they shared the name Uchiha, Haruhi didn't actually know how she was related to Taiko. Sasuke was easier since their mothers were sisters, but Taiko? She had no clue. Haruhi knew Taiko lived with his uncle though, Uchiha Inabi, another relative she didn't know the relation to. They'd been out in the play park, which was located conveniently close. Haruhi only had to take a right turn by her house, down a forest path by Aunt Hazuki's garden, until she reached a fence clearing painted with the Uchiha fan symbol, which looked like a red and white fan, which could be found everywhere in the district. Carved along window frames, painted on fences, walls and poles, depicted on signs, clothes, carpets, weaponry, even hair accessories. Though at the play park there was only that one symbol to be found, and painted on the fence. The rest was a collection of target poles, a rope net tied into the trees to climb up alongside the rusted slide. That morning, Taiko was to act the role of father. Haruhi would play the mother, but Sasuke protested. No, I don't wanna. You be the son, Taiko. That doesn't make sense, Haruhi disagreed. You're younger than us, Sasuke. You can't play father. But I don't want to play the child. But how can I play the dad and you the mum if Sasuke won't play the son? Taiko laid out the problematic logic clearly. It'll ruin everything. Can we ask a cousin for their baby? Maybe we can borrow the baker's granddaughter Ume? She'd probably not mind play a baby. Sasuke offered up a solution. There's also baby Eita, a real baby. He can't walk or talk. They won't let us, Haruhi said, disappointed. I tried once, but Umi-chan and Eita-kun are too little to come play without their mums. She thought over the dilemma hard, and then a sudden, brilliant idea of pure genius fell into her head. But I have a cat! which is how their family cat Inku was fetched to play the role of Harui and Taiko's son. I must sit in the box, the dubious Inku clarified. Yes. Harui laid down a blanket along the bottom of the box. Because the baby must be in the stroller. I've made it nice for you, Inku. It is a box, not a stroller, the cat corrected. It has no wheels. Pretend it's a stroller. You two-legged kittens have elaborate games. Inku's tail swished irate, but he still slunk soundlessly into the cardboard box. Well, have you tried chase a ball of yarn instead? It's easy, fun, and it'll help you train for future hunts. What does this game do? It's fun, she said simply. After some adjustment, Inku settled well enough though. Is it okay? She asked. Do you have space? If I didn't fit, I wouldn't sit. Okay, so we have the father, mother, and Inku our cat-son. Harui counted off on her fingers. Now we just have to be married and we'll be a proper family. What about me? Sasuke tugged on Harui's arm. You didn't want to play our son. I don't, but I still want to play. Harui patted him on the back. I know. You can be the officiant at our wedding. What wedding? Silly, we must have a wedding, and then we can play a real family. The boys couldn't argue the logic, and they set to work making preparations which oddments scavenged from the area, making an aisle with a row of rocks, leaves and twigs leading up to the slide. Aunt Izuki's house was the nearest to the forest path too, so they snuck into her garden to pick honeysuckle flowers and some of her pristine orchids for a bouquet. While there, Harui grabbed her beige tablecloth to use as a veil too, and then they were ready. Sasuke stood before the mouth of the slide, hands behind his back and doing a solid imitation of his father's stern demeanor. We're gathered today to make your cat-son Inku not a bastard, Sasuke said seriously. Harui, do you want to marry Taiko? Alright. I'll marry her too, Taiko piped in. Wait until I ask the question, moron. Then you'll answer. Sasuke reproached their cousin in a deadpan. I control this. Oh. So, do you want to marry my cousin? Sasuke asked. I guess so. We're married, Taiko! Harui clapped. We'll be best friends forever now! No, Sasuke protested, crossing his arms into an X. We have to go back. You forgot the vows. Oh? Harui thought about it. A vow? That's making a promise, right? Alright, then I promise to always share my candy with you, Taiko. She didn't want Sasuke to feel left out though. I'll share with you too. Sasuke shook his head. No, I don't like sweets. Taiko considered the offer though, and then bargained for a slightly better deal. Can it be strawberry flavored candy? Yeah, you can have the strawberry. I want the vanilla. Thank you, Taiko beamed. Meow. You must promise Harui something too, boy, Inku said from his box, head tilted up to bask in the breeze flowing through his fur. Fine. Taiko glanced around the playground, his eyes locking onto the slide. I promise to always let Harui-chan go first down the slide. We'll have so much fun! I think that's all, Sasuke nods. Now you're married. Yay! Harui clapped. Oh, but we have to kiss too. She leaned forwards and pursed out her lips, awaiting her first kiss. But then... Oi! What are you doing? As if teleported out of nowhere, Shisui was leaning against the fence with his arms folded, something mischievous in the set of his smirk. Taiko startled at the abrupt appearance, unfamiliar with Shisui's body flicker jutsu, or just how fast he could travel with it. Little sister, why are you trying to kiss Taiko-kun? Don't you know you'll get cooties? Taiko and I are getting married! Harui declared. Sasuke married us and Inku is our son. We're gonna kiss now because that's how weddings end. Taiko squirmed away from her. I don't want to get girl cooties. That's fine, Taiko-kun. You kiddos can skip that part of the game, Shisui said dryly. Why do you even play that? Don't you want to play ninjas versus witches instead? Harui wanted to play family today, explained Sasuke, and gave Shisui an unimpressed side-eye. Also, don't you know the game is called Ninjas vs. Samurai? Not if you play with my sister. She's a speedy little witch, she'll tell you. Shisui laughed and sauntered over to ruffle up Taiko's hair playfully. You know you just got tricked into marrying a witch, don't you? Witch? Taiko wrinkled his nose. No, I didn't. What's wrong with being a witch? She demanded to know. They're evil and ugly, her new husband said heatedly. No, they're not, Harui disagreed. She couldn't put her finger on it, but she didn't like this. They're cool. Not as cool as ninjas, but they do magic. But you were a mum, not a witch, argued Taiko. I played because you said you'd play the mum. Can't I be a mum witch? Harui petted Inku, who remained in the box, judgmentally watching the budding marital spat. No! Taiko stamped his foot. I don't want a witch wife. They're ugly. I'm not ugly. Witches have warts and green skin. They cast evil spells. That's stupid. Harui picked up a branch from the ground, doing a swish and flick motion. Magic is great and it's just fun, Taiko. Shisui snickered, hands forming into a seal. And next Harui's skin actually did turn green. Her t-shirt morphed into long robes and she wore a really cool pointed hat. Even her stick was changed. The rough gnarliness turned to a neatly carved handle with a polished end. The sunny day turned cloudy, the winds whistled through the trees, and there was brewing thunder in the distance, causing a sense of trepidation in the air. It was fake, of course. This was just Shisui's genjutsu, changing her appearance in the way they perceived the weather. But her new husband had a very different reaction. What are you doing? Taiko took a step back, stuttering. Stop it! He demanded angrily, but how could he be so stupid? Sasuke was snickering too. Zimzalabim! She waved the stick over Taiko. Hocus pocus! Shisui went all the way, making a flashing light come out of the wand. No! Taiko threw himself to the side, almost crashing headfirst into the slide. Stay away, Harui-chan! I'm telling Uncle Inabi! You're being a baby, Taiko. You can't just go. We're married and all. She giggled, reaching for Taiko's hand, but he wrenched his arm free, looking disgusted. No, we're not, you ugly freak! It was like being slapped. I'm not! Harui's stomach knotted unpleasantly, and now she was getting mad. Until now, Harui'd been playing along with a silly pretend game, just like their pretend wedding. But this? Taiko wasn't pretending! Harui pointed angrily at him, swearing. Curse your eyes! To her shock, to everyone's shock, Taiko's black eyes flickered a bright red, the irises spinning as a tomoe formed in the ring around his pupils, just as he burst into tears. Taiko covered his activated Sharingan with his hands as if to protect him from Harui's evil spells. No! He set off running up the forest path towards the Uchiha district, tripping and stumbling in his haste because Taiko had yet to stop covering his eyes. Did he not realize? Where did he... Shisui whispered, flabbergasted. Did Taiko get his Sharingan from that? Sasuke exclaimed, sounding very offended. He did, Harui stuttered. They were red. She looked sharply at her brother. That wasn't you, right? You didn't cast the genjutsu to make it look like you did? No, I focused the genjutsu on you and the atmosphere. Shisui's hands clasped together in the disruptive tiger seal. Release. The rest of the illusion collapsed. The green left Harui's skin and her clothes returned to normal. But Taiko was still gone, and Shisui looked so genuinely perplexed and off. Not at all smug or as if he had a trick up his sleeves. Though that meant... How could such a crybaby get the Sharingan when Harui didn't? Eyes above, it wasn't fair. Taiko-kun must be really scared of witches. A phobia? I didn't know it was that bad. Shisui shook his head. Maybe I shouldn't have cast that genjutsu. Shit. Mom and Dad's going to chew me out for that one. I want the Sharingan too! Sasuke rolled on Harui. Curse me, Harui! Curse my eyes too! Harui had been really mad at Taiko, and the incident was followed by a dispute between Inabi and her dad over which version of events was accurate. Because no! Harui hadn't bullied Taiko into activating his Sharingan. It had been a stupid game. How could she know Taiko was deathly afraid of witches? Besides, he was exaggerating the story. Lying and saying Harui and Shisui terrorized him for ages under genjutsu. When the genjutsu hadn't even been on him. It had been on Harui. At least Sasuke took her side. She knew why though. Most clansmen activated their Sharingan during missions, and life and death situations against enemy ninja. So, well, getting it during a prank didn't sound as impressive, and seemed to make the adults as amused as they were confused. Even Aunt Mikoto had burst out laughing at the story. Most did. Harui was teasingly referred to as the Witch of the Uchiha, where several cousins jokingly asked if she could curse them all into evolving their Sharingan. Fortunately, it died down after a few weeks after Harui agreed to stop pretending to be a witch, where the other kids could hear, if only to keep the peace. Taiko moved past it by looking on the bright side too. He'd never beaten Harui or Sasuke at anything before, but now he got his Sharingan while they didn't. At any rate, today he seemed both eager and ready to go adventuring with his cousins again. Shisui-ni! Harui called through the door, knocking harder. Itachi, Sasuke and Taiko are here! Are you ready? The door slid open, but not by Shisui. It was one of his friends, Yugao. Dressed in all black, Uzaki Yugao was a tall, slender girl with a hair a rich indigo. She'd been an academy classmate of Shisui's when they were younger, and afterwards they joined the same team. Yugao had been around for as long as Harui could remember. She was literally on the picture wall in the hallway. In their Genin photo, a younger Yugao grinned crookedly with a brown-haired boy on her left, Shisui-ni on her right, and a strict-faced sensei behind them. It was nailed next to their dad's Genin photo, a picture of Mom and Aunt Mikoto when they were teenagers, and a family photo from when Harui had been a baby. Yugao was the coolest kunoichi Harui knew. When Harui grew up, she wanted to be just like Yugao. She was nice, pretty, and smart, and made wielding a katana look a graceful dance. Harui wished Shisui'd marry her. If he didn't, Harui'd volunteer a cousin. She had loads. Surely Yugao liked one of them. Are you coming with us too, Yugao? Harui asked hopefully. No, I'm busy, Harui-chan. She excused herself. You guys have fun in Soraku. It's not for fun. We're going on a mission there, Harui told her seriously. Shisui appeared behind Yugao with his backpack in hand. Itachi and I will do the mission. You kids are coming along because our parents are gone, Shisui said and turned to Yugao. Thanks for healing my sprain. I could have managed, but we'll be doing a lot of walking today. No problem. Yugao chuckled. I should be thanking you for volunteering to be my test dummy. Oh, are you a medic nin now? Harui asked, knowing she was studying hard for something like that. Soon, Yugao clarified. I'm sitting my exams in a couple months, so I need as much practice as I can get. Happy to help, Shisui said dryly. Though I'll never understand how someone so proficient at cutting people apart developed an instinct for healing. It's two sides of the same coin, Shi, and also plain useful to be able to both cut off a limb and stitch them back on. Shisui smirked, while Harui stared wide-eyed at the katana hilt on Yugao's hip, struggling to imagine what the two talked about. What's the hold-up, you slugs? Sasuke shouted, snapping her out of her unnerving reverie. Hurry up or we'll go without you! Shisui got a sudden light in his eyes and skipped down the hall, jumping over the cat and out to join Sasuke. You beckoned me, Sasuke-sama? Here I am! Sasuke narrowed his eyes, cheeks puffing with air. You're just messing with me. Be serious. Me? Serious? Shisui said dismissively. We're doing a chore for the clan. It's still early and there's no rush. Coming up behind him, Harui handed him his sandals, waved goodbye to Inku, and went to lock the door as Shisui sat down to put on his sandals. Cheer up, Sasuke. It's a day's travel to Soraku, and it's too early to be sick of me yet. Harui had been looking forward to this for days. She'd never gone camping with her brother, and it was all the better that Itachi, Sasuke and Taiko were going too. Though Yugao wasn't joining their trip, her home was along the way. When they set off down the street, they turned left in the opposite directions of the play park, heading down the street instead of towards the forest. Harui skipped ahead. Yugao fell in step beside Shisui on their way out of the Uchiha district. Their clan ground was like a micro-town within the village, located at the far outskirts of Konoha, closer to the forest and the Naka River. Though it was a bit of a walk to get into the village center, they had more space with direct access to endless nature. The houses were traditional with their own yards, even if some were better maintained than others. They also had a couple stores, a senbai shop and a utility shop, located along the cobbled streets leading to the Uchiha police station in the heart of the district. Good day! The baker called when he stopped by the Uchiha senbai shop. Good day, Tayaki-san, Shisui greeted him. And you too, Orochi-san. You're babysitting little Umi-chan today? The baker's wife and their grandchild, 2-year-old little Uchiha Ume, glanced up from where they'd been refilling the bottom shelf with fresh senbai. Yes, she's our very best employee. Orochi patted their granddaughter fondly on the head. Shishi! Little Ume laughed when Shisui greeted the toddler with an exaggerated salute. What can I get you, Shisui-kun? Tayaki asked. 5 senbai, and could you wrap them, Tayaki-san? Shisui asked, handing over the payment. Of course. While Tayaki collected their order, his wife noticed their backpacks. Where are you kids off to, We're going on a mission! Harui declared before anyone could get a word in. She'd tell anyone who'd listen, and she did. Soon after she'd shared the news with the Uchiha bakers, they came across Aunt Izuki and her daughter Izumi. We're going on a mission! Harui told them. Outside Konoha! Oh, how exciting for you kids, Hazuki said politely. Izumi laughed, brushing her long hair behind her ear. Good luck. A few steps later, cranky Uchiha Yashiro and his sons turned a corner, nearly walking into them. We're going on a mission, Yashiro-san! Harui informed them too. Good, good, he replied with a distracted nod, hurrying past them in the direction of the police station. Further along the street, they met grandmother Naori, and Harui wasted no time sharing the news with her either. We're going on a mission, grandmother! Naori was her great-grandmother on her mother's side, but everyone stuck to calling her grandmother. She was older than Konoha, with long grey hair, wrinkles, and nearly blind. Behind her square glasses, one eye was powdery pale, and the other hazy grey with age. Yet she insisted she could get around without aid. Yes, you're around that age now, Grandmother Naori said sagely. I expect you'll represent the clan well on the mission. No, she's exaggerating, Grandmother Naori. They're only 5, Itachi corrected. We're bringing them along for an errand. They're not even in the academy yet, Grandma, Shisui laughed. Grandmother Naori scowled. Humph, what rubbish. It's just getting worse and worse. But will anyone take action? Oh no. But mark my words, if things keep going this way, they're going to end up creating a generation of coddled nincompoops. Sasuke and Haruhi exchanged looks of mutual outrage. Grandmother, Sasuke argued. We're not coddled nincompoop. Grandmother Naori cackled and pinched his cheek. You better not be, Sasuke-chan. Things may not have been perfect in my time, but you'd never see such coddling when I was young. My generation were sent into the field at 5. In fact, Konoha hadn't been founded as a village when I was 5. I had recently turned 6 when the peace treaty between the Uchiha and Senju was signed, and then Konoha was founded. And that's how they lost about 30 minutes listening to old Grandmother Naori reminisce about the brutal old days, before they were able to get away. Alright, enough delays. Haruhi, stop telling people where we're going until we're at the gates, understood? Shisui said in a hush once they were a safe distance away. If you won't, you can remain here with Grandma until we're back, and she can finish that tale about her arranged marriage. No! Please! I promise I won't! Shisui gave her another chance, but the promise proved a struggle to uphold. There were just so many she wanted to tell. Anyone could tell when the clan district ended and Konoha proper started, because the Uchiha emblem stopped being painted on everything, exchanged for the Konoha symbol. The streets narrowed and the buildings seemed to stretch a few stories taller. Rusty pipes ran along the facades, somehow avoiding being tangled with the electrical wires. There were still trees, but they were squeezed between the buildings, and only a few had their own yards, until they got into the heart of the village, where there was nothing but roads, buildings, cars, and people. In the Uchiha district, Haruhi could recognize everyone as clan members, and though she wasn't as close with everyone, she could name them all. Yet here, in the streets of main Konoha, she suddenly didn't know anyone. An old man with a braided green beard was arguing over the price of chicken with a farmer at one corner, and just a few steps later, a crowd stood huddled around a mask exhibition. Komaru masks! High-quality Komaru masks! The seller called, even while a customer bought a fiery-looking mask with detailed lion dog carvings. She stared at it with big eyes, filled with a sudden yearning to have one so badly. It looked so cool! For a thud from above distracted her, and Haruhi's head tilted up. A group of teenagers jumped out from a nearby rooftop, soaring right over her head, and landed with a soft clink on the opposite roof. They looked almost weightless. Haruhi wasn't the only one people watching. Taiko and Sasuke were craning their necks, trying to see everything and keep up with Shisui and Itachi at the same time. What clan symbol is that? Taiko asked, pointing at the symbol stitched onto the coat on a big ninja ahead of them. Yugao smiled with recognition. It's the symbol of the Akemichi clan. He's huge, Taiko marveled. He was shorter than both Haruhi and Sasuke, while the man in question was both taller and wider than everyone in the street. Most of the Akemichi are, Itachi mused. They use their larger size in combat. In contrast, a short and stocky man was in deep conversation with the Akemichi, and Sasuke pointed to him. What about the symbol that man is wearing? It stands for the Saratobi clan, Itachi explained. That make them clansmen of the third Hokage, Saratobi Hiruzen. Did you know you're named after the Saratobi, little brother? You are named after Saratobi Sasuke, the father of the third Hokage. I was named after a dead Saratobi? Sasuke asked, disappointed. Haruhi patted him on the back. She'd be pretty bummed to learn that too. He was a very strong shinobi in his time. But Sasuke wasn't placated by Itachi's insistence, so Shisui came to the rescue. It's loads better than the name your big brother is stuck with, Sasuke. You do realize Itachi's name literally means weasel, right? They broke into giggles while Itachi could only shrug, accepting his fate. I like weasels. Haruhi tried to comfort him, fighting the urge to laugh. Weasels are nice animals. They live in burrows, you know? Her elder cousin nodded. Thank you, Haruhi. Now that symbol is familiar. Taiko brought the topic back to the symbols, gesturing towards 3 people wearing a symbol Haruhi recognized too. At a glance, the 3 men could pass for brothers, with the same pale skin, same long dark hair, and same milky pale eyes. They were even dressed similarly, wearing well-tailored kimonos and light earthy colors. People stepped aside, giving them space as they made it down the street. Are they from the Hyuga clan? Taiko asked. Itachi nodded. You're correct. Haruhi tugged at Shisui's arm and pointed at the man in the middle. Hey, isn't that the man in your Genin photo, Shisui? Your old sensei? She peered between Yugao and her brother expectantly. Haruhi couldn't remember ever meeting their sensei. No, Shisui said. Our sensei is dead, Haruhi-chan. Yugao's smile faltered as she steered them onto the opposite side of the street from the Hyugas, probably to avoid them. Oh. Though she didn't dare protest right then, feeling bad to have brought it up, it also served to make Haruhi 10 times more curious. She craned her neck, keeping the Hyugas in sight for as long as she could. The Hyuga clan was the 2nd strongest in Konoha. After the Uchihas, of course. Their bloodline also carried a jutsu called Byakugan, though it was weaker than the Sharingan. As if they could sense her stare, the man in the middle, the one that looked like Shisui and Yugao's sensei, looked over his shoulder, meeting her eyes. Embarrassed, Haruhi rushed to look away, pretending she hadn't been gawking, and soon the men were swallowed up in the crowd. What clan does that symbol belong to? Sasuke nodded to a smoking teenager leaning against a sign advertising a princess movie. She was intimidating, with sharp features, piercings, and dressed in a combination of mesh and fur, while the unfamiliar symbol was painted on a band around her arm. The teenager overheard the question. Don't you recognize the symbol of the Nara clan, kid? Sasuke blinked. Am I supposed to know who that is? The teen huffed, removing her cigarette from her lips and blowing a puff of smoke. You're too young to have earned your arrogance, little Uchiha. You recognized my clan from a look, but I've never heard of yours. Sasuke shrugged. Doesn't that make the Uchiha more famous? More like infamous, she muttered. The Nara clan head is the Jonin commander. What position does the Uchiha hold compared to that, eh? The Uchiha run the police, Taiko protested. She sneered, flicking her cigarette so a scatter of ash fell from the tip. Yeah, well, fuck the police. Sasuke, Haruhi, and Taiko gasped. What did she say? Say that again! Indignant, Haruhi rushed forwards, ready to defend both Sasuke and her mother's honor. My mum is police and she'll throw you in jail! For what? The girl spluttered with laughter, making Haruhi's face feel hot and stuffy. For being a nincompoop! We're going. Itachi cut in, grabbing Haruhi and Sasuke's shoulders and frog marching them away. Goodbye, Nara. They were hustled along, but Taiko glared back. She was so mean. I'd like to see her say that in front of my father, Sasuke muttered darkly. She wouldn't dare. Shisui chuckled. Curse her eyes, Sasuke hissed. Father could so beat that stupid Nara clan head. Ignore her. Itachi poked Sasuke on the head, harder than expected, maybe because he'd just been swearing. Is there any other symbols you want to know about? Still upset about the rude teenager, they walked the next street in silence, before Haruhi shook it off. She didn't want that stupid girl to ruin things. They were going on an adventure. So Haruhi peered around, and instead of asking about any more strangers, she pointed at her brother's back. Standing on her tippy toes, she tapped the red spiral emblem at the center of his standard Konoha flag jacket. What about that one? You mean the spiral on my uniform? That's the Konoha symbol. Shisui answered slowly, as if he wasn't sure. Is it? Itachi pointed at the symbol etched into the metal plate on his forehead protector, a leaf-like shape with a swirl. This is the Konoha symbol, not that. The two symbols were close, but not quite the same. Confused, Haruhi scratched the bridge of her nose. Then what is that symbol on everyone's flak jacket? Itachi, Shisui, and Yugao glanced between themselves, as if expecting one of the others to answer. You know, I have no idea, Yugao admitted. Me neither. Shisui ran a hand through his hair, making it stick up in every direction. I never asked. It's probably nothing. Just a bastardized version of the Konoha symbol. Yeah! Out of my way, Tadabayo! Something blonde and wiggling toppled clumsily through their group. Hey! Sasuke shouted, steadying himself on Haruhi, but Taiko ended up sprawled on the ground. Ouch! Instead of stopping to apologize, the blonde boy kept running. Watch it, kid! Shisui called after him. Instead of listening, the blonde boy flicked him the middle finger and flung himself into a side alley, just as another man rushed through the crowd. Come back here, Uzumaki Naruto! The men halted by their group. Have you seen a blonde troublemaker? Yugao pointed straight ahead down the main street. He knocked into us and ran that way. Thank you. The man started running in the wrong direction, while the Uchihas turned as one to look at Yugao confused. Why did you lie? Itachi asked. She shrugged. It's funny. Haruhi didn't get it, but if Yugao said it was funny, it probably was. The bustling activity didn't let up until they got out of the village center, where Yugao split off from the group. Have fun on your outing, Yugao said, effortlessly jumping atop a wooden fence. Bye, Yugao. See you later, Shi. Yugao leapt off the fence to a building facade and started walking up the wall, looking as if it was no harder than strolling along a garden path. She's so cool, Haruhi gaped until Sasuke impatiently dragged her along by the arm. We have to talk with the desk guards before we leave, Itachi told them when they reached the village gates. To report our absence. At the gates, there were a line of people waiting to check out, but Haruhi didn't mind. It was just like real ninjas did before they went on missions. Oh, Shisui said when it was their turn. You're not usually at this post, Genma-san? No, there was a schedule mix-up and we got stuck here instead. The desk ninja named Genma retorted, leaning over the desk to see her properly. Haruhi wasn't tall enough to reach over the desk yet. Genma looked a bit older than her brother, with a Konoha metal plate sewn into his bandana and chewing on a senbon. Going on a trip?
306,
We're going on a mission,
308,
Haruhi told him, distracted by the sound of counting coming from somewhere above them. Somehow the desk guy did not react to the counting at all though. First time? I see you packed, geared and dressed for a proper adventure.
315,
Good work, little
316,
Kunoichi.
317.
Shisui sighed. What did I say about telling everyone about our business, Haruhi? In all fairness, you said she couldn't talk about our errand until we reached the gates, Itachi reminded him. Exactly! And now we're at the gates. Harui grinned. I kept my promise.
332. 333.
Shisui rolled his eyes and handed over his ID alongside Itachi. Ignore my little sister, Genma-san. List her absence as a supply errand, not a mission. This is clan business, not an order from the tower. Genin Uchiha Itachi leaving with Jonin Uchiha Shisui for a supply errand.
340.
Done.
341.
Genma returned the IDs after writing down their info on a scroll. Who's counting? Asked Sasuke bewildered, turning around in search of the source. Where are they? That's just... Guy. Genma sighed and pointed up the roof of the little shed they used to protect the desk from rain and wind. Harui walked back out to peer up. Sure enough, from here she could see there was a man up there, dressed in green spandex and orange leggings. He was doing push-ups from a handstand position, while balancing along the edge of the roof.
351. 352.
What are you doing, Ninja-san? Harui shouted up at him. Don't you have a training ground to train at? Haruhi. Shisui smacked his forehead. Leave it. He's not in the way. It's his own business where he trains. But the man stopped mid-push-up, looking down at her. His face was red, his black hair damp with sweat, but he grinned wide and toothfully. He does have a training ground, but right now he's technically on duty, Genma said, scratching behind his back. And, well, you don't put Guy behind a desk. That won't end well. This is better. He's keeping watch, right, Guy? Yosh! The man bellowed so loudly Harui startled. I'm on full alert and getting my lunch workout done, little Kanochi. Thank you for your encouragement. Well, if that doesn't deter criminals from trying to sneak into Konoha, I don't know what will, said Shisui dryly, while Guy started counting again. You can write down 3 civilian departures for the kiddos, Genma-san. They're Uchiha Harui, Uchiha Sasuke, and Uchiha Taiko. Shisui pointed them out in turn. None of them are in the academy yet. It can't be that long though, Genma surmised. They look around that age. He was right. She turned 6 years old in just a couple weeks, and was set to join the next academy class. Granted, she was accepted, but the prospect of failing the entrance requirements was near unthinkable. Harui was an Uchiha. She didn't think any Uchihas had failed the entrance exams in the history of Uchihas. Harui and I will start the academy soon, Taiko told Genma proudly. Harui waved towards Sasuke. Not him though, he's a baby. I'm no baby, Sasuke yelped. I have real kunai, while you still use the wooden ones. Harui spluttered, but he was right. Sasuke's parents allowed him to practice with real steel, while Harui's stupid mom and dad still won't let her have her own kunai set. But I'm older than you, and that means I'll grow up first, while you're stupid. Sasuke looked at Harui like she was an idiot. That hadn't been her best comeback. Genma laughed. Look at the little team you've collected, Shisui-san. Your very own Chibi Uchiha team. Yeah, well, this Chibi Uchiha team will return tomorrow evening or possibly the following day, depending how well the kids can keep up. Genma approved their departure with no issues and waved them off.
398, 399, 400, 401.
Harui glanced back at the roof ninja, Guy, who paused in the middle of his handstand push-ups just long enough to wave her farewell. She laughed and waved back. It took about an hour before Harui's unreasonably high expectations for the trip clashed with mundane reality. Harui hadn't foreseen how staring at trees, and more trees got kind of tedious. Besides the endless walking, there were a couple highlights. Shisui and Itachi taught them survival skills, explaining how to recognize where a fox hid his den, and where a herd of deer had trampled the moss not long ago. Itachi plucked some edible plants along the road, passing them between everyone so they could try a taste. while Shisui made a fuss about a green plant with strict warnings to never eat those. These are evergreen spindles, and they're toxic to us if you consume too much of it. And once they grew tired of talking about plants, they were challenged to use their ears too. Are those ravens? Harui asked, listening to a distant cawing echoing through the forest. No, ravens make a deeper, reverberating croak sound, and they rarely flock together. They're solitary and don't normally travel with more than one other raven, if any, Itachi told her. So, do you see why what we hear can't be ravens? Harui thought about it. Because there's too many? And you just said ravens don't flock together. Her older cousin nodded. The cawing is from several crows. No sooner had Itachi said it before a flock of black birds took flight. Further into the dip of the valley, a dark cloud of birds rose into the air, cawing and swirling over the trees. 1, 2, 3, 4. Harui tried to count them, but they flew up in bewildering patterns, and she'd lost track of which was counted before she'd even reached 5. Counting crows, Shisui chuckled. Like the rhyme? Itachi arched a brow. What rhyme? The Counting Crows rhyme, Shisui said expectantly, but Itachi shook his head. How can you not know it? You have crow summons, Itachi! How does it go again? Shisui counted on his fingers as he recited. 1 for sorrow, 2 for joy, 3 for a girl, 4 for a boy, 5 for a trickster, 6 for farewell, 7 for a secret you can never tell. I've never heard it before, said Itachi. What does it mean? I'm not sure, Shisui admitted sheepish. 1 crow is probably related to what you said. Crows usually fly in numbers, so seeing only 1 is a bad omen. It'd explain why the rhyme starts by saying 1 crow is for sorrow. I think it's something about funerals? The why 2 is for joy? Who knows? It's a rhyme built from superstitions sung by children learning to count. I know it too, Harui declared, but looked to Shisui. I only know the rhyme up to number 7. Is there more? If there is, I don't know it. There should be. We can make it up ourselves, Harui decided, picking up a stick to wave around like a sword. Or a wand. 8 for a mage. She'd almost said witch, but Taiko was eyeing her stick suspiciously, and Harui didn't want to start another fight. They only just became friends again. 9 for a... change? Itachi suggested, rhyming mage with change. Yeah, that works. The next hour was spent with Taiko and Sasuke making up rhymes to fit between 8 and 30, now and then with suggestions from Itachi and Shisui. During the trip, they fished for their lunch and hunted for dinner. Shisui taught her to skin a rabbit, lending her his kunai. The blood and flesh made her squirmy, but after Sasuke's remark that morning, she refused to act like some baby. She'd show him. Not that the boys paid her any attention. They were preoccupied plucking feathers of a bird to Itachi's instructions. By early evening, Harui was aching, sleeping, her feet hurt, and wasn't shy about sharing her many woes with her brother, uncaring whether he wanted to hear it, though she received a bunch of renewed energy when they finally reached their destination. The brewing dusk fell like a hush over Soraku, but even in daytime, Harui thought the city was a sad place. There was no other way to describe it. They trekked up the crumbling roads between the collapsed buildings. The few structures left erect were wounded with great tears or had large chunks missing, as if blown apart by some explosion during a devastating battle long ago. Plant life, flora, and an excess amount of ivy grew rampant over the buildings. Nature was reclaiming the abandoned remnants from a long-gone civilization that could no longer care for it. Further in, the buildings were less damaged, some even untouched, but no less abandoned. Outside one of the houses, some moldy, darkened sheets swayed lazily in the wind, where the inhabitants who once hung the laundry up to dry never had time to take it down. A moss-grown swing swayed alone under a branch, and there was a thick layer of dust over the signs, making them unreadable. The only living beings Haruhi caught glimpses of were animals. There were cats and birds and mice, at least until Itachi brought them into a stuffy underground tunnel, which led to the only human occupant of Soraku, an old lady called Nekoba.
Oh, what's this, Itachi-kun? I know your little brother, Sasuke-chan, but who's the rest?
The woman had thick, grey hair like a lion's mane, pulled back from her face by a hair bow with cat ears.
You all have the looks of Uchihas. Are you bringing your entire clan along to visit this cat grandma, Itachi?
Good evening, Nekoba. Itachi bowed in thanks as they were allowed into the woman's supply shop. Haruhi kept half hidden behind her brother while peering curiously around. Cats were napping in the windowsills, slinking out from between sake bottles on the shelves, scratching on the draping curtains, or sticking their heads out from a box of scrolls. Wherever Haruhi turned, there were cats. These are my cousins, Shisui, Haruhi, and Taiko. Itachi pointed them out in turn. Good evening. I believe you've met my mother, Uchiha Inori, as well as our cat, Inku. Shisui stepped up beside Itachi, leaving Haruhi without coverage. Old Mikoto told me Itachi could use a second pair of hands for the supply run, and I volunteered. He gestured back at Haruhi. No one is home to look after them, and since Sasuke is already familiar with these trips, we thought it'd be okay. I hope you don't mind my little sister and our cousin being here too. Nekoba scratched the cat in her lap.
The Uchihas are my #1 client, and if they're like Sasuke-chan, it shouldn't be a problem. Respect the cats of Soraku, and we'll get along.
That evening, nothing more special than setting up camp happened. Though the others were more subdued, Haruhi only got more and more energized. This was how ninja life would be, going to places, finding their own food and making safe camp. Even the mundane wariness Shisui and Itachi treated everything with, as if it was a chore that had to be done, seemed cool. Since Sasuke had visited before too, he didn't get excited either, but Haruhi enthusiastically volunteered to help with everything and anything. In contrast, Taiko seemed nervous. She'd noticed the further they traveled from Konoha and the darker it got, the more jumpy he became. Even after reaching their destination, Taiko seemed to think Soraku scary, and wrinkly Nekoba a weird old cat lady. Every now and then, his eyes would turn red for short bursts, activating his Sharingan to look for anything amiss.
I don't get it,
Haruhi told Sasuke while they collected logs for a campfire.
We're with Shisui and Itachi. How much safer can we be? If any set of Sharingan will catch signs of enemies, it's theirs, not Taiko's.
I know. Maybe he thinks Nekoba is an old witch or something. Coward. Sasuke mutters. You know that's the only reason Taiko got his Sharingan, right? He's afraid of his own shadow. He insisted, almost but not quite managing to hide the tint of jealousy. Because being scared can activate his Sharingan, and he frightens easily, so he got his Sharingan easily.
That makes sense,
Haruhi hummed. Their bloodline was activated by chakra, and they'd learned during clan lessons how chakra was made from blending yang release, physical energy, together with yin release, which was spiritual energy. Yin release was tied to the soul, to emotions and imagination. And since their bloodline was particularly adapted to casting illusions, it was yin release that mattered most for the activation of the Sharingan. Though even if Uchihas had an affinity for weaponizing their spiritual energy, it still required training. Yin release was honed from life experiences like learning, theorizing, speculating, and practicing the mind. Not only theoretically, but emotionally as well, as the spirit was never more active than during heightened emotions, such as great joy or deep fear. It's why most Uchihas activated their Sharingan during dangerous missions. Their spirits were thrown into turmoil, and the Sharingan awakened almost in self-defense against overwhelming threats. But, as Sasuke pointed out, in the case of Taiko, Some people scared easier than others.
I guess that means it's the one time being a coward is a good thing.
Sasuke nodded sagely. If only we were less brave.
Yeah, if only the two of us weren't so much braver, then we'd have the Sharingan already.
Probably weeks before Taiko got it. Sasuke grinned.
Maybe months,
Harui suggested.
years,
He insisted.
I'd have it as a baby. Me too.
That's not how it works. Sasuke and Harui whirled around to find Shisui sitting stooped right behind them.
Why did you snuck up on them?
If you don't feel scared when you're in danger, you're merely reckless, and that's very different from bravery. There's nothing admirable about overcoming something that doesn't even register as a challenge. Like a lion chasing after a rabbit. It's not brave for the lion to fight the rabbit, but a rabbit deciding to try to fight the lion despite the odds, that is brave.
And stupid,
Sasuke pointed out. Yes, but even if it's a stupid rabbit, that doesn't make it any less brave. Being brave can only happen while you're afraid, but you overcome that fear and push onwards. That's bravery, and it's much harder than simply not being afraid to begin with.
Oh, Harui nodded. That sounds right too. Well, I still think Taiko's a scaredy cat,
Sasuke said stubbornly. Shisui shrugged. True. They returned with the fire logs, and together they had dinner around a campfire while listening to Shisui telling ghost stories, which made Taiko very pale. They cleaned up, got their sleeping bags, and made ready for bed. Worn out and content, Harui fell asleep almost the moment she laid her head to rest. Holly Potter was being haunted. She tossed and turned through the night, unable to find relief from the ghosts. Cedric was dead. Voldemort was back. She'd been attacked by the Mentors, had a hearing with the Ministry that had determined whether she was expelled, and being stuck in a house seeped in dark magic wasn't making things feel less gloomy. On that night, the townhouse of number 12 Grimald Place had grown too suffocating. In a state between passive indifference and ill-advised recklessness, Holly Potter got up and tiptoed out of the room she shared with Hermione and Ginny. She stepped carefully to prevent the old floorboards from squeaking as she made her way to the narrow staircase with a row of shrunken house elf heads mounted along the wall, reaching the entrance landing without hearing anyone stirring or following. She'd forgotten lighting the lanterns and stood in the gloom with only the cobweb chandeliers glimmering dully overhead. Holly pattered over the threadbare carpet until she stopped before the scratched black front door. Above it, an aged crest with the Black family motto was etched into the wall, reading Toujours pour, in neat but chipped cursive, within a coat of arms of an armored hand holding a wand over 3 black crows. The same crest was stamped nearly everywhere around the ancestral home of House Black, but in the muddy darkness it made Holly liken the wand to a sword, about to swing down and behead the black crows below.
Wake!
Clad in her pajamas and barefoot, Holly unbolted the lock, turned the handle and pushed the battered door open wide, as if hoping to air out her ghosts with the morning breeze, offering the restless spirits an egress from this derelict, rotting townhouse, even if Holly couldn't follow. She breathed in the night air flowing through the open doorway, inviting in the taste of London on her tongue and the sound of cars drifting from afar. The sky was but a dusky blue in anticipation of an upcoming sunrise, but she was wide awake. The sound of feet padding down the staircase made Holly turn back. A tall figure with long, black hair and grey eyes stepped out of the shadows and into the moonlit entrance. "Holly, what are you doing?" Her godfather Sirius whispered, keeping his voice low so he wouldn't wake up the magical portraits. Holly didn't answer.
Wake up or else you'll be sorry.
"Are you going somewhere?" Sirius frowned. "It's the middle of the night.
You can't leave. I just thought I'd get some fresh air. Bad dreams? No. Holly sighed. I'm restless. I couldn't fall asleep. Twirling his wand, Sirius glanced over his shoulder. So this isn't some runaway plan? Where I'd run to? She asked, genuinely confused. Everyone's here. He grinned. You're only after some fresh air? Yes. Fine then, but don't tell. Sirius pointed his wand at her. Just a little trip around the neighborhood, alright? Holly broke into a smile as her pajamas turned to a hooded jacket, and he transfigured her a pair of shoes. When she looked up, her godfather had turned into a big black dog. With his tail wagging, Padfoot dashed past her through the door. Neither of them should be seen, so Holly pulled up the hood, covering her scar and face, and followed through the doorway, trying to catch up.
Wake up already!
Haruhi woke up with her cousin's face hovering right over hers. Sasuke's scowl promising pain if she didn't heed his orders soon. Me? Haruhi grumbled, rubbing sleep out of her eyes. About time. I was this close to pouring water on your head. Sasuke leaned back and shook his water bottle, showing he meant to fret. Haruhi sat up at once. I had a strange dream, she told him, running a hair through her wild hair. I was in this witch's house, and it had so many landings with weird carvings everywhere, and there were heads on the walls, and there was a black door and— Yeah, sure. Sasuke cut her off, disinterested in listening to her dreams. Nightmare about some haunted house then? Don't tell me you got scared of Shisui's ghost stories last night. No! Haruhi protested, face heating up. She hadn't been scared? Sasuke and Itachi were wide awake and ready, while Taiko was rolling up his sleeping mat. Sasuke turned to Itachi. Next time I'm not waking her. You want to switch? Itachi glanced meaningfully from Sasuke to Haruhi, and down to where Shisui was out like a light. Itachi kept shaking his shoulder, asking quietly for him to wake up, but with no luck. Her brother laid splayed across his sleeping mat, gaping, breathing heavily, and maximizing his size to the fullest. Arms spread wide and twisted to a diagonal in his sleep, until his legs occupied most of what had been Itachi's tatami mat. Luckily, Itachi spent most of the night sleeping on the ground, seeing as Shisui was a kicker. It's why Haruhi had put 3 cousins in between them before falling asleep. Sasuke held up the water bottle. Want some help, Itachi-ni? Itachi paused, glancing between the bottle and Shisui, tempted with the easy solution, yet held back by his politeness. Well then. Wide awake and ready for a morning mischief, Haruhi grabbed the water bottle from Sasuke. You're too gentle, Itachi. Watch and learn. She bounced over, flipping off the lid. Forbidden Arts! Waterboarding Wake-Up Jutsu! Damn it, Haruhi! Aunt Mikoto had put in an order for a big weapon shipment from Nekoba on behalf of the Uchiha clan. Itachi and Shisui's jobs were to confirm inventory and quality checking. In the meanwhile, Haruhi, Taiko and Sasuke were given the responsibility of overseeing the meals. There's a river passing through Soraku you can fish from. It'll be your job to fetch us some fish for lunch, Shisui instructed. Don't let us down. Our rumbling stomachs are counting on you. Come, I'll show you where the river is, Sasuke said, taking charge leading them into the stuffy underground tunnels and back into main Soraku. They found an overgrown road and stuck to it until they reached the stone bridge. A wide river ran underneath it, splitting the village in two. The bridge remained the only connection between one side torn by brutal destruction, compared to the other side of the river, where the damage stemmed from abandonment and neglect. As Sasuke was the only one with real kunai, he cut branches from nearby trees. In the meanwhile, Haruhi unpacked her roll of string from her pouch, measuring it to length before tying a hook on one end,
and the other side to the stick Sasuke provided. With their makeshift fishing rods in hand, they collected worms from the soggy soil around the riverbank, speared them on hooks, and threw their line into the water. The river streamed calmly underneath the bridge, the surface glittering from beams of sunlight, though the tall railing made it hard to see anything. What happened? Harui asked Sasuke, climbing up to sit on the railing. How did Soraku get this way? The boys followed her example, Taiko clambering up while Sasuke leapt easily onto the railing. Soraku used to make weapons for Konoha, Sasuke told him, walking along the railing until he found a good spot and took a seat. Until some evil enemies destroyed it during the First War to hurt our village. It didn't work though. Konoha won! Taiko boasted, kicking with his feet so he nearly slipped, though Harui couldn't make herself share his bravado. She was glad Konoha came out of the war intact, but one glance around Soraku proved it hadn't gone that way here. These people had lost their homes. They'd lost their whole village. Where were all those people now? And it happened because Soraku helped Konoha? She thought of how lively the streets of Konoha had been yesterday, and it made the silence over Soraku even more pronounced. It reminded Harui of her dream last night too, and the witch's house gone to waste. This place is strange. Nekoba too, Taiko said. Why does she live somewhere everything is destroyed? The Nineko have a good life around here, Sasuke told them. They're tough and protect the village. Not very well, Harui pointed out. Everything is a wreck. Sasuke thought about that. True. And it's not the cats that make this place weird, it's that woman. Nekoba isn't a cat, is she? Taiko said. Why doesn't she move to Konoha, where there's other people? Nekoba was born here and doesn't want to go. Maybe because of the cats? Sasuke guessed. She'd rather live in a ghost village? Weird. Taiko shook his head. I hope your brothers are quick. I want to go home. You're the one who asked to come along, Sasuke reminded him. You could have stayed at home. I couldn't. Why not? Harui asked. Taiko lived with his uncle, Uchiha Inabi, because his parents were dead. Uncle Inabi told me to find somewhere else to sleep for the night, he answered. He needed the house since he wanted to propose to his girlfriend. Inabi-san proposed to Mochi-san?
Not so loud, Harui.
Sasuke hushed her. You'll scare the fish. But Inabi-san is getting married, Sasuke. Isn't that nice? She turned back to Taiko. Don't you think that's nice? She's very bossy, Taiko grimaced. But your uncle loves her, so it's good they're getting married. How will he propose? I don't know. You don't know? Is he going to propose at the house or do it somewhere else? He didn't tell me. I don't know. Who else knows? Did Inabi-san ask her father for permission? No, wait, he's dead, isn't he? Her mother then? I don't know. Do you at least know how long it'll be until they marry? I don't know. Does he want a big or a small wedding? I don't. You're useless, Taiko! Harui threw her arms in the air, causing her fishing line to jerk sharply in the water. Is there anything you do know? Yes, he was going to propose last night, Taiko huffed. That's why I asked to come. That's it? I know nothing should be your name. You both know nothing, Sasuke grumbled. Guess we're going to be here all day with your yelling scaring away the fish. In the end, they returned to camp with 4 sizable fish, which was just shy of enough. Even if 3 of them were full after half a fish each, Shisui could easily eat for free. Are you done with your mission yet? Sasuke asked. No. Itachi shook his head while stacking their emptied plates. We're staying another night. Will you sort out dinner too? We spent all morning fishing, Sasuke sighed. Can we go hunting for dinner instead? Itachi hummed agreeably. Yes. Speaking of hunting, I have something for you, sister. Shisui rummaged through his backpack and brought out a dark holster, the sort ninjas tied around their thigh to hold a kunai. This is for you. I can borrow it? Haruhi eagerly accepted the holster, flicking the lid up and a sleek, shiny kunai slid out. Shisui smiled. This is yours. I bought it from Nekoba. It's mine? Haruhi breathed, grasping the hilt and unsheathing it fully. It felt wonderful, powerful, like a true kunoichi. She'd cut anyone who tried to mess with her. You'll be starting the academy soon, and they only use real steel there. It's better if you're familiar with it beforehand. You can count it as your birthday gift.
Thank you so much, Shisui-ni.
She hugged him tightly, bursting to try it out right away.
This is brilliant! See, Sasuke?
She rolled towards her cousin.
Now I have real steel too. Want to practice?